Damn, I'm not gonna be there, sis. I'm sorry. I just got called in to handle a job for the families, and it's urgent. As soon as it's over, you do whatever it is that the cops want you to do. Go to your new apartment and start unpacking at your new place. This is Bedtime Stories, Grown-Up Edition, Genesis, bonus episode 2, part 1. When we left off, Maribel and Portia had been rescued. Well, actually, they'd saved themselves, and Portia was holding Maribel at gunpoint. Thank God for Donovan's intuition, because he was the one who raised the alarm. And a completely oblivious Miss Burney and Mrs. Ali had one of the best days at the spa ever. Around 11:15, they left the spa looking and feeling like $1 million. They headed to lunch at a restaurant owned by individuals well known by and connected to the families. Miss Burney had a penchant for soul food, so they headed to the restaurant laughing and talking like old friends. Miss Burney had realized that Mrs. Ali wasn't nearly as bad as she thought she was. And Mrs. Ali had realized that there was a method to Miss Burney's madness. And while she never had a homegirl that was a lesbian before, she could see her and Miss Burney becoming fast friends. She'd yet to meet Liza, Miss Burney's girlfriend, but she couldn't wait to check out this blues lounge that Burney and Liza frequented on a regular basis and have her very first night out in Dallas. Their plan was solid. After lunch, Mrs. Ali would head home, relax after experiencing the royal treatment and having a full belly, and Miss Burney would take a nap, right up until time for Liza to come home and take her out for their dinner date. As long as Wise didn't know anything that Mrs. Ali didn't, and didn't have any objections to her night on the town, she'd be meeting Miss Burney and Liza at the Blues Lounge at 8:30. At that same time, Donovan's plane had landed. He'd gotten an update from the head of Maribel's security team, and all he needed to know was that they were alive and where they were. And that's what he told the Queen Mother when he called her. She was at the round table. Javier had just finished reporting what he knew about the situation. And Marley had already said that Maribel's bracelet wasn't tracking her heart rate, but it had been moving around the basement of the medical building. It was now racing across town, headed towards the hospital. When the Queen Mother's phone rang, she didn't give a damn about protocol. It was her son, and she knew that he had to be losing it. At least that's what she was expecting. When she answered, she was relieved and she was overjoyed that Donovan wasn't spazzing. He was heading to the hospital. And the only reason why he hadn't called her earlier was because he spent the entire flight praying fervently. He turned his phone off and told the guards who were on the plane with him that his prayers should not be interrupted. Everyone at the round table already knew how the situation between Maribel and Portia had worked out. But no one had told Donovan about that particular issue. Since it was clear that Donovan was none the wiser, the Queen Mother was not going to be the one to tell him. Their call ended just in time for the Queen Mother to hear Javier say that the team had the 2 getaway drivers, and they were on their way to a safe house, where the men would be interrogated, Five Family style. At the hospital, doctors were checking Portia out. She was, in fact, in preterm labor, and there was no stopping it. As she arrived at the hospital, her water broke. She was inconsolable, and nothing Maribel said or did would calm her down. She just kept saying over and over again, "I just don't understand. Why would you choose me and my baby? Why would you choose us over saving yourself?" Portia understood that if she killed Maribel, her day of reckoning would absolutely come. There would be no way that she would survive that. Not only would she be violating the contract between herself and Donovan, but no matter how much Donovan loved her as a friend, he damn sure wasn't going to let her live if Maribel didn't. But that wasn't really why she didn't shoot Maribel. When Portia and Donovan were held up in that cabin, Portia had told Donovan exactly why she'd fell for him in the first place. When they were in the treatment facility, she had violated the rules, per usual. And she didn't know Donovan well, but he'd covered for her. And that was more than enough to endear him to her, because no one had ever picked her. No one had ever chosen her. No one had ever risked anything for her. She'd risked a lot for her adopted brother and for Jeff, who had been her friend since childhood. And whenever the rubber met the road, she was always the one to take the fall. She was always the one punished, arrested, institutionalized, expelled from school, and eventually expelled from her adoptive family. The only person she had in the world was Jeff. And if he had to choose between himself or her, he was going to choose himself. And that's exactly what he did. With his own life on the line, he gave Portia up. And Donovan didn't only stand in the gap for her at the inpatient treatment facility, but he then turned around and stood in the gap for her while she was holding him hostage in a cabin. And for that, he would have her undying loyalty. Now, as a certified psychopath, that meant she was going to do some stupid stuff. He knew that, and so did Maribel. And while there was no love lost between Portia and Maribel saw the bigger picture. Portia was going to be the mother of Donovan's 3rd child. She was already helping him raise 2 children, birthed by 2 deceased mothers. And she really had no problem helping him raise a third. Hell, she wasn't ready to have any biological children. And since her biological clock was ticking, and she had no interest in doing any type of medical interventions to get pregnant one day. Because despite the fact that she'd helped countless women do so, she was a naturalist at heart. If God and natural remedies didn't make it happen, then she figured that it just wasn't in the cards. And that was actually fine with her. If this was her husband's last chance at fatherhood, then she was going to preserve it. But she also wasn't no damn fool. She'd been trained by the best. Portia was using her baby 380. She knew its report, how well it handled, how many bullets it held, how many she'd loaded in the clip. And by ear, she knew how many shots Portia had let off. Portia couldn't have known any of those things. And Portia wasn't trained. So if Portia was pointing that gun at Maribel, then she had no idea that it was empty. But Maribel did. Maribel wasn't nearly as altruistic as she made herself seem. She wasn't gonna let Portia kill her. She knew that Portia couldn't kill her. And had Portia pulled that trigger, there would not have been a boom. But Maribel was gonna knock Portia's damn head off. She was gonna beat the hell out of Portia. And then let the soldiers take her to the hospital, where she was gonna deliver her baby. The contract was going to be severed, and Portia was gonna be institutionalized for the rest of her life, if somebody in the families didn't kill her. But it wasn't gonna be Maribel, because she was going to live in peace with her husband. And if Portia survived, Maribel was going to make it her business to ensure that Portia was institutionalized overseas, with virtually no access to the outside world, and very, very limited access to Donovan and her own child. Maribel was playing chess, not checkers. So she left Portia's fate in her own hands. Maribel didn't know everything there was to know about Portia's life. Donovan, during his grief, when he believed that Portia was dead, had shared a lot of details with Maribel about what happened when he was in the cabin with Portia and how Portia got to be the way she was. But he didn't share a whole lot of the intimate and personal details of Portia's tragic life, because it was just too difficult for him. He was genuinely grieving his friend. And since Maribel wasn't all that interested, because she thought Portia was dead, she never really pressed for more information. She just focused all her attention on supporting her new husband. She figured that Portia would either do the right thing out of self-preservation, or she'd do the wrong thing and seal her own fate. But she had no clue that Portia was going to turn into a blubbering mess, just hearing Maribel say that if she had to choose between her own life and the life of Portia and her unborn baby, that she wouldn't let the soldiers who were there to protect her take Portia's life, and therefore take the life of her unborn child. And that's precisely what happened. Portia turned into a blubbering mess. She said, "What kind of person are you? No wonder he married you. You're a damn saint. You two are like perfect for each other. This all had to be God. He wanted me to see you, really see you. And I was about to kill you. God, please forgive me." She put the safety on the gun, lowered it, and collapsed on the floor. She was thanking God, thanking Maribel, apologizing, boohoo crying, and having contractions all at the same time. The soldiers ended up having to carry her to the car. The whole ride to the hospital, Portia was saying, "I'm going to get the help that I need. I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to follow Christ. I'm going to be the best Bible thumper this world has ever seen. Call Angela. Tell her that I'm ready to do the work she's been trying to get me to do. I promise. Lord, just save my baby. Maribel, is there any way we can be friends? Like, can you mentor me? Because I want to be like you. I promise you won't never have no problems out of me. I don't even want your man. You can keep him. Your parents must be angels. I want to meet them. I want to thank them for giving birth to you." And Maribel was trying not to laugh. She just kept saying, "Portia, you got to calm down. It's okay. It's over with. It's okay. You got to calm down. The baby needs you to calm down." Meanwhile, in Miami, Simone was preparing for the big show. That night was her girlfriend or ex-girlfriend Razor's big birthday bash. Razor was turning 25, and Simone was giving her a party to rival all parties. Everyone in Razor's family who was still in communication with her was going to be there. So were all of her friends, their mutual friends, and several of her co-workers. The party, though, was a surprise. It was being held in a banquet room at a restaurant. And dinner was not the only thing on the menu. There were quite a few other surprises on the menu, too. Simone had invited several of the women who Razor had cheated on her with. They had no idea that Simone was supposed to be Razor's girlfriend. They thought they were receiving the invitation from Razor's best friend, who was giving this surprise party. So all of those women would be in attendance, and they would all be bearing witness to the perfectly curated slideshow that Simone had put together. She had pictures from Razor's childhood, her college days, the years that they'd been together off and on, pictures of Razor having intimate moments with some of the women who would be in attendance. She also had screenshots of text messages and emails that were disgusting and appalling that Razor had sent to her during their difficult times. But the Icing on the cake were the videos. Simone had had hidden cameras put up all over her place. Of the triplets, she was the only one who wasn't staying on campus. When she and Razor were on, they shared an apartment. When they were off, Razor showed up and put hands on her. And since Simone didn't have any pictures of her injuries before, she decided to up the ante. She'd cut Razor back leading up to this birthday party. Got her real pissed off. And like a broken record, Razor showed up to the apartment. And from 3 or 4 different camera angles, Simone captured exactly what happened when she did. And everyone who would be in attendance at that birthday party would see that video and know exactly who Razor really was. Because on that video, she called Simone everything but a child of God. She threatened her and even carried out some of those threats too. Simone had been covering bruises and a black eye with makeup. And when the slideshow started, she planned to duck off and remove all the makeup. When the video ended and the lights came on, her injuries would be right there in their face, front and center. And so would the police, because this time, she was pressing charges. And while they cautioned her against publicly humiliating Razor, one phone call from Catherine had detectives on board with the plan. Simone knew that the friends who would be present, who hadn't had her back all of this time and refused to believe that Razor was really that kind of stud, would immediately regret not believing her. And most likely, they would try to support and console her. But she was off all of them. Spring break was starting. She was heading to St. Lucia, and all she needed before she left was her sisters. Unfortunately, Chantal was in Texas, but Star was planning to be there. And if anybody even thought they was going to jump bad, Star was planning on putting paws on them. Meanwhile, in Dallas, the roundtable had just wrapped up, and Star had just gotten instructions from Selima that she needed to head to New York. She'd been called in for a covert operation that needed to be sold up before spring break ended. She had her marching orders, her playbook, and she was smack dab in the middle of packing when she got a phone call from Simone about the birthday party that night. Star said, "Damn, I'm not going to be there, sis. I'm sorry. I just got called in to handle a job for the families, and it's urgent." Simone said, "This is urgent too. I need you there to support me. You know this is going to be hard for me, and I'm scared I might relapse." Star said, "Don't even talk like that, sis. As soon as it's over, you do whatever it is that the cops want you to do. Go to your new apartment, finish your packing for St. Lucia, and start unpacking at your new place." Razor was spending time with her sister. At least that's the lie that she told Simone. She was actually spending time with one of her jump-offs. So her sister was assigned to get her over to her place, where everything that she would need to be fresh to death for her surprise party would be waiting, keeping Razor from returning to the apartment. Meanwhile, movers were packing everything up and moving it to Simone's new apartment, an apartment that Razor knew nothing about. If she managed to get bond and actually get out of jail, Simone would be in the win. Razor had no idea that Simone was even going to St. Lucia to work with the Charles family. So not only would she be moved, but she'd be out of the country for the rest of the semester. Razor would be hard-pressed to find her. And she hadn't provided a soul other than her family her new address. Security was already in place and lined up, and they would be sufficiently hidden during the party while also covering her old and new apartments. The plan was foolproof. All Simone needed to do was avoid her dealer, because she'd been clean and out of rehab for months. Avoid all of her friends, Razor's family, and co-workers, and get on a plane to St. Lucia in the morning. Meanwhile, in Colombia, Zyla had taken advantage of the fact that Alejandro had gone to Dallas so that he could be physically present at the roundtable meeting. His estate was fully secure, so she wasn't at all worried about her safety. But she was worried about her baby father. After her discussion with Alejandro, she called him from a secure phone. And as expected, he had a whole lot of questions. Not only did he want to know where she was, who she was with, what she was doing, and who phone she was calling from, but he wanted to know why he couldn't reach her on her phone, why he couldn't reach any of the kids on their phones or tablets, why she wouldn't FaceTime him so that he could see her and the kids. And despite the fact that only the youngest was his, he'd stepped up and been present in their lives, so he felt like he had a right to them. Zyla had stuck to the script, though. She told him that she left New York. Her brother's death was too much for her. The city just brought back bad memories. That she wasn't with her sister or her mother. That she didn't know where her mother was, and she had no clue why her sister wasn't at home. Her baby father had said that he'd gone by Samuel and Miss Charlotte's house, looking for her and the children, and no one was there. He'd been there several times. And not only had Miss Charlotte not returned after Big Wood's funeral, but Zora hadn't been seen since Zyla left their apartment. When they ended the call, Zyla had ended the relationship. She made it clear to her baby's father in no uncertain terms that she wasn't returning. He would never see the children again, not even the one that he fathered. And when they hung up, he would never be able to contact her again. She handed Alejandro the satellite phone back, and he removed and disposed of the SIM card, making it impossible for her baby father to ever reach her on that phone again, so that the older children would have entertainment. He provided them with new tablets, but no cell phones. And those tablets were restricted, so they were unable to FaceTime or otherwise communicate with anyone. Alejandro couldn't risk the children contacting a friend or extended family member and saying the wrong thing or showing them the wrong thing. So by Friday, the kids were miserable. Yes, they were on a nice estate with all of the amenities. They had all the entertainment they could stand inside the house and on the property. But they'd never been to Colombia before. They couldn't explore, and while Zyla knew Spanish, she'd never taken the time to teach her children. So they had a difficult time communicating with anybody other than their mother and Tasha's two sons. Throughout that week, Zyla had numerous assignments. Get her children accustomed to the property, get them enrolled in remote school under assumed names, and most importantly, make them understand that they were literally in hiding and no one could know where they were. This was their new normal, because one of the things that Zyla had told her baby father was actually true. They were never going back to New York, at least not to live, even when the whole situation with the traffickers was over. Because Zyla liked what she saw. The men were fine, the weather was perfect, and the lifestyle was right up her alley. Once her children were settled and used to the new environment, Zyla was getting in the game. Alejandro was going to need a replacement. And with Big Wood deceased and having communicated that he didn't want the job, and there not being any other immediate family members who could take the position, Alejandro would much rather Zyla take it than to wait for Tasha's two sons that he and his wife had adopted to grow and mature and see what they were made of. While anyone could learn the game, not everyone had it in their blood. And it was clear from Alejandro and Zyla's discussions that Zyla had it in her blood, just like Big Wood had it in his. He just didn't want it. But Zyla wanted it, and she was willing to go the distance to get it. She'd even agreed to have her tubes tied so that an unexpected and unwanted pregnancy wouldn't derail her plans. She knew that her training would be long and extensive because she had zero experience, but her natural instincts had proven to be good. And all she needed to do was focus on getting her children in line, because they were begging to talk to their father, their friends, Miss Charlotte's siblings, their great aunts and uncles, and they were clearly not happy in Colombia. Zyla had explained everything that she could to these kids, that they were in danger, that being in Colombia was keeping them safe, that they couldn't talk to any of their friends or family, that talking to those people might put those people in danger, that they might inadvertently say something or do something that might give away their location and put themselves in danger. She'd explained that this was temporary. While they would be staying in Colombia long term, they'd be able to speak with their friends and family again. But they'd also have an opportunity to make new friends. They needed to focus on learning Spanish and not running amok on Alejandro's beautiful estate. Tasha's children were adjusting well. They were speaking Spanish. They were enjoying homeschool. They were taking advantage of the amenities that were being provided while still respecting Alejandro's home. So why in the hell could her bad behind kids not do the same? Zyla was frustrated. So she decided that she'd use the satellite phone that Alejandro had left her with to be able to communicate with her sister Zyla in Puerto Rico, her mother in Dallas, and her father, who was still in New York, to call her father and see if perhaps he could talk some sense into the children. She'd called several times and gotten no answer. Exasperated, she finally decided to use that phone to call her baby father, to let the kids talk to him on the phone. She'd be right there to prevent them from saying anything that they shouldn't. And she told them more times than she could count that if she let them talk to him, they couldn't say a damn thing about where they were, who they were with, what they'd been doing. All they could actually do was tell him that they missed him, they loved him, they were all fine, that they were really never coming back, and listen to whatever he had to say. But there was virtually nothing that they could add to the conversation. She figured everything would be fine. She'd just take the SIM card out of the phone when the call was completed, tell Alejandro what she'd done when he came home, give him the SIM card, he'd destroy it, and give her another one. What she didn't expect was that when she called her baby father, handed her daughter the phone, as soon as she heard the phone answer, because she didn't want to talk to him, he wouldn't be on the other line of that phone. He'd heard her daughter say hello, hold the phone for a while saying nothing, and then she saw a confused look on her daughter's face. When she asked her what was the matter, her daughter said, "Nobody's saying anything." She took the phone from her daughter and said, "Hello? Hello?" And then she heard a man say on the other line, "Gotcha." The call had been connected long enough for their exact location to be triangulated. Zyla freaked out and hung up the phone immediately. She called Alejandro and getting no answer. She called her stepfather, Samuel. When Samuel answered the phone in Puerto Rico, Zyla said, I messed up big time.